grew up with the same 20 kids from kindergarten through high school, and they, so nothing's changed there, right? A town of 2,000 people. So that hasn't changed. I mean,
most people spend their early 20s experimenting with careers, with identity, with failure that can still be undone. Parker Schnabel never had that phase. Before he could legally rent a car, he was already managing an operation where a single mistake could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Heavy machinery didn't slow down for youth. Payroll didn't pause for uncertainty. Deadlines didn't care how prepared he felt. They arrived whether he was ready or not. While others worried about grades, internships, and first jobs, Parker worried about frozen ground, fuel costs, and whether a decision made at sunrise would still make sense by nightfall. His risks weren't theoretical, they were immediate. If he failed, it wasn't just embarrassment, it was debt, shutdowns, and livelihoods on the line. That kind of pressure doesn't suddenly appear. It's built slowly, over years of exposure to responsibility, long before most people encounter it. Long before Gold Rush made him recognizable, Parker was already operating in environments where effort wasn't optional and excuses had no value. The land didn't negotiate, weather didn't compromise, machinery didn't forgive inattention. This wasn't overnight success disguised as grit. It was preparation that began too early for comfort. By the time opportunity finally showed up, Parker didn't need to grow into it. He didn't need training wheels or second chances. He had already been tested, quietly, repeatedly, and without applause. That's the difference people miss. Fame didn't create his capability, pressure did. And when the spotlight arrived, it didn't elevate him. It simply revealed someone who had been operating at that level long before anyone was watching. Parker Schnabel didn't grow up around gold mining. He grew up inside it. His childhood wasn't split between school and play. It was absorbed by work that mattered. Early mornings weren't special occasions, they were routine. Engines starting before sunrise weren't events, they were background noise to daily life. At his grandfather's mine in Alaska, responsibility wasn't symbolic. It wasn't about teaching lessons gently or keeping a child occupied. Tasks had consequences. Equipment was heavy. Mistakes weren't brushed aside. If something failed, it affected the entire operation, and Parker learned early that his actions had weight. While most kids were handed toys, Parker was handed expectations. If a machine broke, you didn't complain, you diagnosed. If weather shifted, you adapted. If a plan collapsed, you rebuilt it. There was no room for waiting until you felt ready. Readiness was earned in motion. Living in a remote mining town also meant self-reliance wasn't a philosophy, it was survival. There were no specialists on standby, no quick fixes. Whatever you had, you made work. Whatever you knew, you applied. And whatever you didn't know, you learned fast. This wasn't cruelty disguised as toughness. It was preparation rooted in reality. That environment didn't promise success. It promised exposure to pressure, to problem solving, to accountability. By the time Parker was old enough to recognize stress, it was already familiar. Confidence wasn't assumed. It was built slowly through repetition and responsibility. And when real challenges arrived later, they didn't feel foreign. They felt like continuation. Everything changed when Parker lost his grandfather. What had once been guidance became obligation overnight. The person who corrected mistakes, absorbed pressure, and offered protection was suddenly gone, and the mine didn't pause to acknowledge the loss. Grief had no schedule. Machinery still needed fuel. Workers still needed direction. Bills still arrived. And suddenly, Parker wasn't preparing to lead. He was leading, fully, publicly, permanently. At that age, leadership wasn't a title, it was weight. People depended on his decisions. Machines didn't care how young he was, neither did financial reality. Every choice carried consequence, and walking away wasn't just quitting, it meant letting something meaningful collapse. Then came the decision that defined his path. Instead of using his college fund for a traditional future, he invested it directly into the mine. Equipment instead of classrooms, risk instead of security. It wasn't reckless optimism, it was calculated belief. He wasn't betting on luck, he was betting on experience earned early and often. Failure would have been visible, expensive, and impossible to hide, but standing still felt riskier than moving forward. That moment locked responsibility into place. There was no someday, no fallback, just commitment. And from that point on, Parker Schnabel's life wasn't about potential, it was about execution. Reality television is built on exaggeration, manufactured tension, edited conflict. Gold Rush didn't exaggerate Parker Schnabel's pressure, it revealed it. When Parker first appeared on screen, skepticism followed immediately. He didn't fit the image people expected. He was young, reserved, focused more on work than words. For many viewers, that translated into doubt. But doubt doesn't survive results. What separated Parker wasn't confidence for the camera. It was competence when things went wrong. There were no rehearsed speeches or staged confrontations. Decisions were made in real time, often with six-figure consequences attached. When equipment failed, it wasn't a storyline. It was a financial bleed measured in thousands per hour. When weather shifted, there was no reset button. The ground didn't care about ratings. As the show grew, so did the weight of expectation. Viewers expected success. Producers expected progress. The industry watched closely. And yes, the money increased, but what most people misunderstood was what that money actually meant. It didn't make his life easier, it raised the stakes. Each season brought larger operations, higher costs, and thinner margins. One wrong call could undo months of work. Being filmed didn't create safety, it created exposure. Mistakes weren't private, they were broadcast. But Parker never performed for the camera. He worked through problems the same way he always had, quietly, methodically, without excuses. That consistency turned him into something rare in reality television. Someone audiences trusted, not because he was entertaining, but because he was real.
There's a moment in every career when promise stops being enough, when expectation demands proof. For Parker Schnabel, that moment came early and publicly. One season changed everything, not because of luck, but because of scale. Bigger ground, bigger risks, bigger consequences. Pulling serious gold from unforgiving terrain isn't about working harder, it's about planning with precision. Timing operations around weather windows that don't bend. Keeping equipment running in conditions designed to break it. Managing crew morale when exhaustion sets in and setbacks stack up. That season, everything had to align, and when it didn't, Parker adjusted. He didn't panic, he recalculated. He didn't blame conditions, he changed strategy. That ability to stay controlled under pressure stood out, especially when competitors twice his age were unraveling under similar strain. The numbers mattered, but they weren't the most important part. What mattered was how those numbers were achieved, with discipline, with foresight, with decisions made calmly while everything around him pushed toward chaos. That season didn't just mark success, it delivered validation. From that point on, Parker wasn't viewed as a young miner getting lucky on television. He was seen as a serious operator, someone who understood the land, respected the risk, and accepted the cost of getting it wrong. And once that reputation was earned, the pressure didn't ease, it intensified. Because proof invites expectation, and expectation never gets lighter. Buying a gold claim isn't glamorous. It doesn't come with certainty or celebration. It comes with silence, paperwork, and the uncomfortable realization that once the deal is signed, there's no one left to blame. When Parker committed millions to a claim that required near-perfect execution just to break even, the danger was immediate and real. Miss the mark, and years of work wouldn't just stall, they would vanish. The problems surfaced early. Frozen ground slowed production to a crawl. Equipment broke under strain. Recovery numbers lagged behind projections that had looked solid on paper. Every delay burned money. Every miscalculation tightened the margin. The clock didn't pause, and neither did the expenses. Most operators would have cut losses, downsized, retreated to safer ground. Parker didn't. He recalculated, and then he doubled down. Instead of pulling back, he invested deeper, upgraded equipment to improve efficiency, improved wash plants to increase recovery, strengthened infrastructure to reduce long-term risk. Each move raised the stakes. Each decision made failure more expensive and success more transformative. This wasn't recklessness, it was belief under pressure. Parker wasn't chasing quick wins or television moments. He was building an operation designed to survive volatility, not avoid it. He understood that mining doesn't reward hesitation, it rewards commitment informed by data, experience, and timing. That deal revealed something fundamental about him. He wasn't afraid of risk, he respected it, and that respect shaped how he moved forward. It didn't guarantee success, but it explained why, when the ground pushed back, Parker didn't walk away, he adapted and stayed. Competition in gold mining isn't polite, it isn't subtle, and it's rarely fair. For Parker Schnabel, rivalries didn't arrive as dramatic showdowns. They arrived as contracts, royalty clauses, and deals that looked reasonable on paper until the numbers started closing in. Royalties climbed, margins thinned. Promises made in handshake agreements became pressure points later. Parker learned quickly that experience didn't always mean integrity. Some lessons came quietly, others came publicly, and all of them carried cost. Negotiation stopped being a formality, it became strategy. Survival depended on reading people as carefully as the land, knowing when to push back, when to walk away, and when standing firm mattered more than staying comfortable. When pressure peaked, Parker didn't collapse into confrontation for the sake of ego. He adjusted, changed terms, took control where he could. And when confrontation became unavoidable, it was direct, not dramatic. These moments weren't about pride, they were about sustainability, about refusing to build success on terms that would eventually destroy it. Standing his ground had consequences. Deals were strained, relationships cooled, criticism followed. But something else happened too. Respect formed. Even rivals who challenged him publicly acknowledged his capability privately. They saw someone who understood risk, honored effort, and refused to be outmaneuvered simply because of age. That respect mattered more than approval, because in mining, reputation isn't built on friendliness, it's built on consistency. And those rivalries didn't weaken Parker, they sharpened him. What the show rarely lingered on was what success quietly removed. While Gold Rush captured production totals and high-stakes decisions, it didn't dwell on what those wins demanded in return. Time disappeared first, then relationships, then the space needed for anything that didn't directly serve the operation. Winning seasons didn't translate to balance, they translated to more responsibility. For Parker Schnabel, commitment wasn't something that could be split. Mining at that scale doesn't allow half attention or emotional availability. The work follows you home. Decisions linger after the day ends, and when something goes wrong, it doesn't wait for personal moments to pass. Parker has acknowledged something few high performers are willing to say out loud, that in the process of building success, he failed people who supported him, not through neglect driven by indifference, but through focus that left no room for adjustment. The job didn't demand cruelty, it demanded priority, and something always paid the price. That reality reveals a quieter side of ambition, one rarely celebrated. Success in that form isn't loud or triumphant, it's isolating. It narrows life until only what's essential remains. The victories feel muted because they arrive alongside sacrifice that can't be reversed. And that understanding didn't slow Parker down. It didn't lead to dramatic change or retreat, it simply clarified the cost. Ambition became less romantic and more precise, less about achievement, more about acceptance. Because once you see what success takes, you either step away or continue forward with open eyes. Parker chose the second path. There was a season where momentum vanished. Problems didn't arrive one at a time, they stacked. Equipment failures, poor returns, mounting expenses. Cash reserves thinned until decisions stopped being strategic and started being urgent. This wasn't about expansion anymore, it was about survival. Options disappeared quickly. The usual levers, investment, patience, optimism, stopped working, and eventually, Parker faced a decision no operator wants to make. Selling something irreplaceable wasn't symbolic, it wasn't dramatic, it was necessary. What followed wasn't cinematic recovery. There were no inspirational speeches or sudden turnarounds. There were hard conversations, meetings where honesty replaced confidence, offers made without guarantees, choices that didn't feel victorious, just essential. That period stripped away illusion, the belief that success naturally builds on itself, the assumption that experience prevents collapse. It didn't. It only prepared him to respond when collapse came. And slowly, not dramatically, things stabilized. Not growth, not abundance, just enough to continue, enough to breathe, enough to rebuild. That season reminded everyone watching that Parker's story wasn't powered by momentum, it was powered by endurance, by the ability to stay present when the future looked smaller than the past. Because resilience isn't proven when things improve, it's proven when stopping would be easier. Parker Schnabel isn't a symbol of effortless success. He doesn't represent shortcuts, luck, or overnight achievement. His story illustrates something far less glamorous, preparation arriving long before opportunity, and responsibility arriving before comfort. At its core, his journey isn't about gold. Gold is the measurement, not the meaning. The real story is about timing, about pressure that doesn't wait, about choices made when there's no guarantee they'll work. Parker didn't win because the cameras followed him. The cameras followed him because he was already operating under conditions most people never experience. Conditions where mistakes carry cost, where leadership isn't optional, and where belief has to be backed by action. What makes his story resonate isn't the totals pulled from the ground, it's the consistency, the willingness to stay accountable, to accept loss without collapsing, to succeed without pretending it came without sacrifice. And the truth is, the cameras never captured the full weight of that. They couldn't. Some things can't be edited into a narrative. The loneliness, the second guessing, the pressure that follows you even when things go right.
Because real success doesn't look dramatic from the inside, it looks heavy. And Parker Schnabel learned how to carry it early and kept carrying it when most wouldn't.